Now that 2024 is here, you need to know who to play in your solo queue ranked game. Well, as you can see, I have a tier list for you. Now, it's a bit different because there's a situational category. Now, the situational people aren't necessarily worse than the people above them, and they're not necessarily better than the people below them. Kind of imagine this tier as its own list that is separate from the rankings of everything else, and you'll begin to understand why I put the operators that I put there. Regardless of that though, let's get into the video. Starting out though, let's go over the F tier, the worst operators on attack, that being Blackbeard and Sens. Now, I did make a video on Blackbeard about how I think he's super underrated, but even then, it's not like he's anything better than people are saying he is. He's a pretty bad operator, underrated as it may be, he's still pretty bad. The shield is just paper thin. Sens, good operator in perception and as an idea, but in actual practice, Sens is not a good operator because of how clunky and inefficient it is to use the gadget. This gadget just never goes where you think it's going to go, and unless you have an exact placement for it, it's just not as useful as like a smoke wall. So Sens is never that good of an operator. If they made the ability a bit easier to use and a bit less counterable, I think Sens would be great. But now that we've gone over the worst operators, let's move on to operators that are just slightly better, which is the C tier. These operators consist of Fuse, Finka, Amaru, Kali, Glaz, and Grim. Fuse I think is pretty good, best weapon and scope in the entire game. The issue is that using Fuse to get kills is not viable, you'll barely be able to make it happen. Using him for utility clear is still pretty good, but if you wanted to do that, there's better operators to do that with, and Fuse is just slow, so just not that good of an operator. Finka, a good fragger, but just pretty lackluster compared to other fraggers like Ashe, Yana, Jackal, Lion, Dokkaebi, so I just not even going to talk about it. Amaru, same thing, very lackluster. There are certain situations and strategies that you can use with Amaru, but even then, those strategies are still like a coin flip. They're 50-50 on whether they work or not, so I don't recommend you playing Amaru if you want to get wins. Kali is good. The actual ability of Kali is pretty nice, especially if you're going against Zombie, going against Castle, or a bunch of barbed wire, but the sniper just completely tanks any reason that you would want to play Kali. Same thing with Glaz. Glaz's sniper, a bit too zoomed in. I think now that Glaz is a 3-speed with frag grenades and a bearing 9, he's a lot easier to get kills with, but even then, you're not bringing any utility compared to somebody like Thermite or Lion, right? So just not really worth the pick. Grim is next. Now, Grim suffers from the same issue that Sens suffers from. The ability is just a bit hard to use and a bit uncomfortable to use. If they made the ability maybe an under-barrel gadget or a bit easier and more effective, then I think Grim would actually probably be like an A or even S tier pick because of all of the buffs that they've given Grim so far. But now that we're done talking about all of the trash operators, let's move on to some operators that are actually pretty good sometimes, and that would be the situational tier. You have your shield operators, Blitz and Monty. You have Ram, you have Capitao, and you have some of the hard breachers and Brava. Now, the reason that these shield operators are situational is because there are certain situations where you can play these operators effectively, especially considering that shields just got reworked and are more powerful than ever. Now, if you're a bad player with shields, they're going to be bad. These operators naturally get better and better the more you're able to use them. And no, that doesn't go for every single operator, especially as much as the 2 shield operators right here. So Blitz is pretty good on certain situations like Elbow Rush on Oregon. Monty is good for taking Rafters on Clubhouse, etc., etc. There are some certain situations that they're good, but not every situation, which is why they're situational. Ram, great operator, but you can only reliably use Ram and her utility if you're playing above a site, and you can't do that on second floor sites or first floor and basement sites like Basement in Oregon, where you can't even play vert. So Ram is situational. Do I think that Ram is worse than any of the attackers I'm about to show in A or S tier? No. I'm just saying that she's situational, which is why I said earlier, the situational tier, don't even consider where it is in the tier list, just have it as its own little side list, because some of the operators are better than the operators in A and S tier, or worse than C and F tier. Next, we have Capitao. Another great example of an operator that's really good, but really you can only use them in certain situations. And then we have the 3 hard breachers, Hibana, Thermite, and Maverick. You're only going to play these 3 hard breachers specifically if there's a strat in mind. If you need hatches, play Hibana. If you need a quick and easy open wall, play Thermite. If you need to counter a turbo route, play Maverick. Other than that though, you're just going to run Ace most of the time. So that's why these are situational and not anything higher. Then we have Brava. Now, the issue with Brava is that Brava is completely useless unless they have utility for you to hack, which a lot of the times isn't the case. It's a 50-50 shot whether they have utility you can hack, and even then, you still have to hack that utility, which is pretty dangerous. And even then, my dumb teammates still shoot my hacked gadgets, so I just don't find myself getting a lot of value out of Brava unless I'm in the certain specific situation where I have good teammates, where it's safe to use her drone, and there's utility that I can even hack in the first place. But now that we've moved on from these situational operators, we can get into operators that you should be playing every single round. Good operators, which is A tier. You have operators like Knock, Flores, IQ, Ash, Twitch, Buck, Zofia, Zero, and Nomad. Knock is a good fragger. 1.5 times scope on an easy to control SMG unless you're on console, and frag grenades. Pretty good overall. Flores, you can bring every single round. Gets barbed wire, deployable shields, Fenrirs, Azamis with ease. Flores is a great operator. IQ, 1.5 times scope on a 3-speed with frag grenades. Need I say more? Ash, 3-speed with an ability that supports rushing with a G36C 1.5 times scope. Need I say more? Twitch is pretty good if you know how to use her DMR, or if you're a maniac and can control her F2, she's even better. Pair this up with the fact that her utility is pretty good every single time that you use her. She's like the epitome of slightly above average in Rainbow Six Siege. She's okay, she's good. Definitely think that she belongs in A tier. Buck, good for playing vert, good for getting frags. In terms of playstyle versatility, Buck kinda has it all. You want to be a fragger, bring flash grenades, bring a secondary pistol, and use the shotgun to make yourself rotate and quickly rush the site. If you want to be a support, bring hard breaching charges for the hatches, play vert with Buck, bring a Gon 6 for the shields or the Azamis, and you can do whatever you want to do with Buck. Great operator, good gun, 1.5 times scope, need I say more? Zofia. The only issue with Zofia and why she isn't S is because she's a 3 armor. That's pretty much it. The secondary utility that she has as well isn't all that good, but in terms of utility and weapons, she kinda has it all. Same thing with Zero. The only reason Zero isn't higher is because if you want Zero to be useful, you need to have teammates that are watching your flank cameras. If you put down cameras for the flank, or for information, or to get utility, and your teammates aren't watching them, then Zero is completely useless, and this is a solo queue tier list, so chances are your teammates aren't going to be that good, and because the majority of players are silver and gold, then Zero just is not going to see the light of day in terms of the win screen that often. But if you have reliable teammates, and if you yourself are the one that is on the flank cameras because no one's died, then Zero can be a phenomenal operator, which is why I had to put him in A tier. Now we have Nomad. Nomad is pretty good. The only issue with Nomad is you can't bring her to every single map, because there are some maps where there's either A, too many flank routes for Nomad to cover, B, no runouts for Nomad to cover, or C, there's just maps like Villa, where you can shoot the air jabs from no matter where you put it on the staircase. Now, she's good for runouts whenever you're on a rappel, but I think a better flank watch operator would be Zero or Gridlock, because most of the time you can just shoot the air jabs if you walk up to it slowly on the flank. So I don't recommend you use Nomad for flanks at all. I just recommend you use her for runouts, and that's not all the time, which is why I only put her in A tier. But now that we've gone over all of that, we have the best of the best operators in Rainbow Six Siege that are borderline broken. We have the S tier. These operators consist of Dokkaebi, Lion, Thatcher, Ace, Jackal, Ying, Osa, Yana, Sledge, and Gridlock. Now, let's go over the first two, Dokkaebi and Lion. The reason I'm pairing these two together is because they're very similar operators. They both have a Gon 6, they both have EMP grenades. Wait, no, didn't Lion get his Gon 6 taken away? I don't know. They're both similar though, but you get the idea. They have good abilities, they have good utility, and they have good guns. If you're on console, the DMR on Dokkaebi might not be that good, but if you have some sort of mechanical aim on PC, you notice that the DMR is pretty good. She has the best roam clearing mechanic in the entire game. Considering that Jackal is banned a lot too, she can be seen as a very, very good round pick. She also has the ability to get all defender cameras, so I think Dokkaebi just overall is amazing, especially in a meta that suits fast-paced gameplay. Lion, same thing. If you drone out an operator, you press the Lion scan, they only have two options. They can either A, run away and get pinged in which you kill them, or B, they can sit still, but you droned them out earlier, so you know where they are and you can pre-fire and kill them. So either way, they're dead. And you can do that 3 times, which is why Lion is super, super good. Thatcher is good. Now, arguably, you can put Thatcher in situational because you'd only use him to open walls, but that's just the thing. You don't need him to just open walls. You can use it to disable Fenrir, Capcan, Any sort of electronic utility, you name it, Thatcher can destroy. He's not meant to just get walls open. So if you bring him every single round, no one's really gonna complain. The only issue is that he's, banned all the time, but that doesn't make him less of an operator. Now, Ace, I think, is an all-around good hard breacher. For competitive reasons, he's one of the worst, but for ranked reasons, he's one of the best because he brings so much utility for such low effort. You want a quick breach? Ace has got it. You want a big breach? Ace has kinda got it. You want a breach that is versatile? Ace definitely has that. You want a good gun so you can still get fragged? Ace also has that. You want claymores so you don't get ran out on whenever you're getting the breach? Ace has that too. Pretty much a all-around jack-of-all-trades operator. The fact that Ace has the AK-12 with a 1.5x scope as well means that you can frag with Ace and get walls as Ace. So he's pretty much everybody's operator. Then we have Jackal. Now, if Jackal wasn't banned all the time, obviously Jackal would be the best roam clear in the entire game because the mechanic of his ability is pretty good. Do I think Dokkaebi is better? Absolutely. Dokkaebi is just much faster and more efficient at roam clearing if you're good at using her phone calls. But Jackal is still pretty good. With good weapons too, and the fact that you can still scan through smoke grenades, I think Jackal is an outstanding operator. Next, we have two pretty underrated operators that I want to go over. Ying and Osa. Now, if you're on console, you probably know that Osa is a great operator. I don't know what it is with PC people and just not playing Osa, but it's an epidemic that I can't describe. That being said, Osa's great, because Osa can do one thing that no other attacker can do, and that is turning defender power positions and defender angles into attacker power positions and attacker angles. You essentially flip the script of what normally is a power position for the defenders into the attackers. Not only this, but good guns and EMP grenades solidifies Osa's spot in the S tier. Ying as well is great, especially for the meta. Now you may be thinking, well, Warden's played every round and you put Warden in S tier last video, but think about it logically. When was the last time you saw a Warden use his ability? I'll wait. I guarantee you, when you were counting, you were only counting on one hand, if even at that, because the last time I used my Warden ability was probably a month ago. I mean, you don't really use the ability, it's not very useful, so it's not a good excuse to counter Ying. Wardens roam half the time anyway, so if you're playing Ying on site, you don't even gotta worry about it. The fact that she can cook her blinds too to get free side executes with an LMG, with no recoil, with a 1.5x scope or a 2x scope, with 4 blinds and 2 smoke grenades for the plant or an execute, Ying's crazy. She's a sleeper pick for sure, just like Osa. Then we have Yana, same thing as Ashe, G3060 with the 1.5x scope with a slightly better ability. Then we have Sledge, Sledge is Sledge, Hammer go bonk, 1.5x scope, easy weapon, not even going to go over it. Then we have Gridlock. Controversial, I know, but let me explain. Secondary utility, you either have EMP grenades, which is good, frag grenades, which are good, or smoke grenades, which are very cohesive with her utility, because her entire job is to lock the grid of a site, hence the name Gridlock, to get a plant down. In terms of flanking, she's really good, because unlike Nomad, where you only have to put 1 bullet into the air jab to flank somebody, with Gridlock, you have to put several, so it's more of a warning and it gives you more of a reaction time. 1.5x scope on an LMG or an AR and is super shorty to make soft rotations. Gridlock just pretty much has it all. But that's it for this video. If you like this video, check out this next video. My name's Alka, and I hope I'll see you all there. Later.